My younger brother, Daniel, has always held a deep grudge against me. If you think it was jealousy, you'd be mistaken. He wasn't envious. He was the cherished child in our family. There was no reason for him to feel inferior. For context, our mother doted on Daniel constantly. He was her golden boy, her pride and joy. She prepared his meals, washed his clothes, and even expected me to assist with his homework. I was supposed to help him simply because we were brothers, but I never got the same support. I didn't mind too much, being naturally self-reliant. Maybe I was partly to blame for always giving in to his demands without expecting reciprocity. Daniel never offered me help when I needed it, and only approached me when he wanted something. I was a reserved, studious kid who preferred my own company, while Daniel was boisterous and aggressive, much like our father. I'm also blunt and honest, never softening my words, which might have led my mother to view me negatively. Her favoritism made Daniel the family's darling, and I was okay with that during our childhood. But trouble started when he began tormenting and ridiculing me for being different. He mocked my height and my glasses, sneaked into my room, read my journal, and tattled to our mother about my private thoughts. When I confronted him about invading my privacy, our parents brushed it off, saying it was just sibling antics. Daniel did worse things, like nearly breaking my glasses and slipping disgusting items into my food. Once, he hid small pebbles in my cereal, which I fortunately noticed before eating. When I told my mother, she dismissed it as typical brotherly bonding. During our fights, Daniel targeted my vulnerabilities with cruel insults. We attended the same school, where I was already bullied by a few kids. Instead of defending me, he joined them, hurling names like pathetic geek or awkward freak and egging them on to hurt me physically, calling me a total failure. Once, during a petty argument I can barely recall, he told me to end my life. That cut deep, especially since I was grappling with mental health issues at the time. I'm stronger now, but back then, hearing my brother wish me dead was crushing. With our father often away at work and our mother indifferent, she even blamed me once, saying I provoked Daniel. Things escalated over time. In high school, Daniel tried to set my hair on fire, and shockingly, our mother defended him, claiming it was just a prank. Who does that? Thankfully, my father finally stepped in, recognizing the seriousness of the situation. He threatened to involve the police, which stunned Daniel, who had never faced consequences before. That moment shook Daniel, and my father made it clear he needed to respect me. Later, Dad spoke to me privately, admitting he'd hoped Daniel would grow out of his behavior, but now saw him becoming a true bully. Hearing this validation from my father nearly brought me to tears. I opened up about all the torment Daniel had put me through, including the school bullying. Dad was appalled at how much I'd endured. The next day, he spoke to the school principal to ensure the bullies faced consequences. That evening, he enrolled me in MMA classes at a local gym, urging me to stand up for myself. A nerd like me learning to fight might have seemed absurd, but I was determined. I balanced my studies and training, and MMA transformed my confidence and physique. One day, Daniel stole my chore money, which I'd saved diligently. I caught him as he was about to ride off with his friends. When I demanded my money back, he taunted me, saying I'd just run to Dad for help. Something snapped, and I punched him in the face. He fell, stunned, and I grabbed my money from his pocket before shoving him down again. Daniel wailed, which was almost funny. Our mother rushed out, shocked to learn I'd hit him, and scolded me for not being a better example. Daniel smirked, enjoying my reprimand. When our mother complained to our father, he demanded we both explain ourselves. I told him how Daniel stole my hard-earned money, while Daniel claimed he needed it for a date and that I should have helped him as his brother. Dad shut him down, saying he was lucky I only punched him, as anyone else might have called the police for theft. Daniel threw a tantrum, hoping our mother would defend him, but Dad stood firm. Realizing he wouldn't be punished for my actions, Daniel screamed that he hated me and locked himself in his room. After that, Daniel distanced himself from me. He realized he couldn't bully me physically anymore, and even Dad had stopped enabling him. For the first time, I felt we were on equal footing. Though he stopped physical attacks, he resorted to sly verbal jabs when our parents weren't around. His behavior grew worse with age, becoming angrier and more volatile. When I tried talking to him, he'd ignore me, muttering insults like dork or failure under his breath. If he needed to communicate, he'd go through our mother instead of speaking to me directly. When I asked her why Daniel couldn't just talk to me, she told me to be more patient. I couldn't tell if it was puberty or genuine hatred. I repeatedly asked my mother to mediate a conversation to resolve our issues, but she refused, saying she didn't want to get involved. When I asked why Daniel treated me this way, she dodged the question. Eventually, I left for my dream university on a scholarship, thrilled to escape the toxic home environment. My father threw a celebration for my achievement, and even my mother seemed proud. Daniel, however, remained cold, barely acknowledging my success. Leaving for university was a mix of excitement for my future and relief from the oppressive atmosphere at home. My first few months at university were freeing. I made friends, loved my classes, and built a life free from Daniel's verbal attacks, finding peace at last. In my second year, I met my wife, Emily, at a campus party through a mutual friend. We hit it off instantly. Coming from a conservative background, having children out of wedlock was frowned upon, so when Emily got pregnant in our final year, we married soon after graduation. Our wedding was small but joyful, with our parents delighted. I thought Emily was my soulmate. I always wanted a committed, monogamous relationship, a partner to share my life with. Despite interest from other women, I stayed loyal, content with Emily, but I later discovered 2 instances of her cheating: a years-long affair with a married colleague and a brief fling with an ex during a family visit. Some might call me naive, and in hindsight, I can't fully disagree. We separated briefly each time, but I forgave her, not wanting to raise our child in a broken home. I attributed her first affair to youthful mistakes. Things improved for a while, and though I struggled to trust her fully, I worked to move forward, believing in a fresh start. 4 years after her second betrayal, I felt confident in my choice to stay. Emily seemed changed, and we were happy, planning our family's future. 3 months ago, my world collapsed when Emily confessed to a long-term affair and revealed our son might not be mine. Her words hit like a freight train, leaving me reeling with shock and betrayal. Numb, I asked why she hid such a devastating secret and how she could do this to me. Her cold, detached response left me with more questions than answers, amplifying my pain. I pressed her for the truth, feeling I deserved to know who fathered the child I'd raised. She admitted it was Daniel. My heart sank as I asked for clarification. She explained that she and Daniel bonded when I introduced her to my family during a holiday visit from Thanksgiving to New Year's. Daniel, usually hostile toward me, was kind to her, which I appreciated, wanting Emily to feel welcomed. Emily, eager to fit in, spent time with my mother and included Daniel in our plans to help mend our relationship. She invited him to movie nights, and we watched his choices. Daniel and I exchanged a few words, a slight improvement from his usual silence. I noticed them playing video games together but thought nothing of it. Emily said Daniel confided in her about a breakup, feeling vulnerable. He began flirting with her when I wasn't around, and things escalated. The thought of them together made me sick. Emily said she felt guilty and left abruptly before New Year's, which aligned with her sudden decision to go home. I tried to convince her to stay, but she insisted. When we reunited at college, she seemed normal, so I didn't suspect anything. 2 weeks later, we learned she was pregnant. Emily admitted she wasn't sure if the child was mine or Daniel's, but chose to stay with me, believing I was the more reliable partner. That's why we married. My world shattered. The son I adored might not be mine. I asked if she'd been with Daniel recently, and she nodded, admitting they'd stayed in touch due to their undeniable connection. They met secretly at hotels, lying about work trips. I asked why she married me if she wanted Daniel. She said she didn't want to end our marriage, saw me as a great father, and made a mistake she couldn't stop. I told her I appreciated her honesty but was leaving. She cried, begging for forgiveness, expecting me to lash out. Instead, I calmly packed. She argued that if I loved her, I'd fight for our marriage, saying mistakes happen. When I didn't budge, she claimed our son would suffer in a divorce. I reminded her I might not advertising be his father, which made her sob and call me heartless. She seemed shocked I was leaving, perhaps because I'd forgiven her before. Maybe that was my mistake. Though I loved her, it was tied to believing we shared a son and our history. She insisted we could fix things, but I couldn't trust her. Forgiving was one thing, but forgetting she slept with my brother was impossible. I left her crying and checked into a hotel. The next day, I told my parents about Emily's affair with Daniel, revealing their years-long betrayal. Their shock was palpable. My mother predictably tried to defend Daniel, insisting he'd never betray me. To prove it, I asked them to stay silent while I called Daniel in their presence, pretending it was private. When he answered, I confronted him about the affair. He denied it at first, refusing to take responsibility. But when I said Emily confessed, he blamed her, calling her untrustworthy and boasting he was the more attractive brother. I warned I'd expose him. He scoffed, claiming no one would believe me since he was the favored child. I laughed, thanking him for confirming the truth, knowing our parents heard everything. Daniel stammered, trying to backtrack. My mother demanded an explanation. Daniel stumbled through excuses, blaming Emily and avoiding accountability. My father, usually stoic, couldn't hide his disgust. He took the phone and told Daniel his actions betrayed not just me, but the entire family. He'd violated family values of loyalty and decency, destroying trust. Dad admitted partial responsibility for Daniel's behavior, but cut off his college funds and financial support, telling him to manage alone. I stayed calm, though I wanted to scream. Watching Dad discipline Daniel was deeply satisfying. My mother hugged me afterward, a rare moment of connection. She apologized for not believing me all those years. My 14-year-old self could never have imagined this validation. Dad helped me find a divorce lawyer. Emily and her lawyer fought for alimony, citing my higher income, but her affair worked in my favor. A paternity test confirmed Daniel was the father, a gut-wrenching blow. I was furious the son I'd raised wasn't mine. Emily begged me to stay in our son's life, saying he shouldn't suffer, but I couldn't face him. He reminded me too much of Daniel. After the divorce, moving into my own place felt liberating. Having married young, I'd never lived alone, but my independence made it easy to adjust. 2 weeks ago, Dad said he was revising his will to exclude Daniel, who'd been begging for forgiveness, but was refused contact. Even my mother, once lenient, seemed done with him. Daniel never apologized to me, only upset about losing our parents' support. Dad planned to leave me his $2 million estate, with the condition that Mom could live in their house if he passed first. I agreed, wanting to care for her. Somehow, Daniel learned about the will and called me, claiming he was struggling with college and child support for his and Emily's son. He begged for my help to reconcile with our parents. I laughed, reminding him he should have considered the consequences of his actions. He argued Emily was equally at fault, and I agreed, noting I'd divorced her, making her his problem. He raised his voice, but I cut him off, calling him the family's outcast for his betrayal. He cried, saying everyone, including our relatives, had abandoned him. I told him we were done and to never contact me again. Replaying that call, I felt a pang of guilt hearing him cry, a sound I hadn't heard since childhood. Despite my anger, it stung to see him so broken. So, I'm wondering if I should speak to our parents about him, or if I'd be wrong to ignore his plea. Update 1. Many have asked why I cut contact with my son Ethan, and some called me harsh. I need to clarify. I can't raise another man's child, especially not my brother's. I was deceived into believing Ethan was mine, only to learn he's Daniel's. That truth devastated me, and I grieved for days. Staying in Ethan's life would keep Emily in mine, and I need distance from her. Call me selfish, but I can't see him again, at least not for a long time. Update 2. Many of you guessed correctly that my mother told Daniel about Dad's will change, prompting his call to me. I confronted her with Dad present, and she broke down, saying I'd punished Daniel enough and he'd learned his lesson. Dad firmly stated that if she thought Daniel's betrayal was forgivable, he couldn't stay married to her. That silenced her. He warned that if she contacted Daniel again and we found out, she'd have to leave. Dad's stubbornness held firm, and I hope Mom learns from this. Update 3. It's been 5 months since my last update. My bond with my parents has strengthened. Dad and I golf weekly, and he treats me like a friend. Mom misses Daniel but has kept her distance. My cousin said Daniel's been borrowing money from relatives and dropped out of college due to unpaid fees. He and Emily are living together, with Daniel working part-time as a mechanic, raising Ethan. I avoid discussing Daniel with my parents, and they don't mention him. I'm doing well. I got a promotion 2 months ago, boosting my salary. I'm not dating, as I need time to heal, but I've started therapy to work through everything. Thanks for reading. If you enjoyed this, please follow for more real-life stories.